Before we start this video, do like and subscribe to our channel and not miss on any updates.
Hello my dear CA Final AFM students, trust all of you are doing very well. So I am here today to tell you something very important. And what is this important thing? The list of important questions that you should be preparing if you are going to write your exam in November 24. So if you are a November 24 CA Final student, this is the video that you should watch. Now what are we talking about here? So if you look at the list of questions, right? I have made a list of about 150 questions. How many? 150. Out of total 602 questions. What are the 602 questions? If you remember, I have released a practical compiler called P600 Plus, practical question compiler, which contains all questions of past exams, RTP, MTBs, then study material, practice manual, everything. Okay, MTP, RTP, study material, old, new, practice manual and suggested answer. So this compiler contains 602 questions, which is I call it P600 plus. Out of this, I have chosen 150 questions. Now, how did I choose? What are these 150 questions? These are the questions that I've chosen based on what are likely, or from what is the pool from which questions can actually appear in the November 24 exam. Now, some of you may be wondering, sir, but 150 is too large a number. Yes, my dear friend, 150 is slightly larger number because institute is very, very unpredictable. There is very little predictability in the institute. So, which is why you have to have a slightly larger number. Now, you see, if you see, first chapter is risk management. I'm looking purely at practical questions, right? Risk management, totally there are 6 questions in the compiler. I have given 3. Question number 2, 4 and 6. Like that, going topic by topic, advanced capital budgeting, security analysis, security evaluation, every single chapter I have listed down questions. And this question count comes to 150. Now, some of you may also be wondering, sir, 150 questions you have given as a list, but what about previous lists? So, I actually did an analysis. And what is the analysis? If you see, I had revealed, or rather I had given important questions even for May 24 exam as well as November 23 exam. This is November 23. For both these exams also, I had given important question ka list. And what happened to that list, sir? Some of you may be having the doubt. Kya hua? Us list se kya hua? How many questions came? So, in fact, if you look at May 24 exam, I have written it down here. For the May 24 exam, obviously, out of 100 mark paper, 30 marks is MCQ. This is new syllabus. 70 marks is Q&A. Out of this Q&A also, this 70 marks again is split as you have 6 questions, out of which you can choose any 5. 1 you can leave in choice. And each one carries 14 marks. Now, this 14 marks is split very, very differently. Some cases it is split as 6, 4, 4, this 4 being theory, this 6 and 4 being practical questions. Like that, it is split into multiple parts. Now, you get 5 questions that you have to answer. Actually, you are given 6 questions. So, if you take a broad logic, 6 questions are given, out of which 14 marks each question has, which is 84 marks. Out of this 84 marks, some is theory, some is practical. Roughly about 70 was practical questions and about 14 was theory. Out of this 70, I had given a list of some 240 odd questions. It's a much bigger list. This time I have compressed the list to much smaller number, 150. Out of this 240, we actually got roughly, out of these 240 questions, roughly about 6 questions were asked out of 241. Okay, I think my list was 241. Out of this 241, 6 questions were asked. These 6 questions carried 40 marks. Those 6 questions carried 40 out of this 70 marks. So 40 out of 70, which is what? Roughly 55% of the questions. Now, this is May 24. Let us move to November 23. What happened in November 23? In November 23 also I had given a list of 215 questions. Why is there an increase in May 24? Because we had a new chapter called Advanced Capital Budgeting Decisions. Okay, and there were some new concepts that were introduced in CA Final derivatives chapter, for and a bunch of other chapters. There were small new concepts that were introduced, right? So, which is why from November 23, 215, it went up to 241. Out of this 215, if you look at November 23, what actually happened? In November 23, you did not have MCQs. So totally it was a 100-mark question paper. Out of this 100-mark question paper, you have 5 plus 1. You have 6 questions. These 6 questions, you had a choice. So out of this, out of 6, any 5. So each question was 20 marks. Basically out of these 6, you have to choose 5. Each of these 5 was 20. Out of these 20, roughly about 16 marks was usually practical and 4 marks was usually theory. Okay. So if you count all practical questions across all 6 questions that were given, you had 96 marks of practical questions. Out of that, how many questions were asked? 64 marks came out of this 94 came from this 215. 64 out of 96 came from 215. And how many questions were asked? In total, there were 12 questions that were asked. Okay. Because there were 6 questions, each of them had 2 subsets, 2 in the form of sub questions and all of that, total 12 questions. Out of these 12, 8 questions came from this 215 only. Okay. So if you were to summarize this, what actually happened? November 23, May 24 and November 24. What is the question list? November 23 was 215, May 24 was 241. Now I have reduced it to 150 only. Right. Then these were the total questions in revision, important questions. Okay, important questions. Then we have something called as strike rate. Strike rate, that is how many questions or marks came from this 215 or 241. So the strike rate, if looked as marks percentage, right, in May 24 was 55% and November 23 was 67%. 64 by 96 is 2/3. 2/3 is 67%. And strike rate in terms of questions was 8 by 12, which again comes to 67%. This for November 23. And strike rate in terms of your May 24 was 6 by 12, which is 50%. Okay. Now let us see what the strike rate is going to be for this particular attempt, which is November 24. Which is what we are looking for. So, my dear friends, this is the broad list. Now, some of you can say, sir, but that is a very long list, but please note ICAI is unpredictable, which is why I am having to give such a big list. Now, where can we find this list of 150 questions? Where can we find this list of 150 questions? This list is going to be attached, or rather the list is going to be given as part of the description of this video. So, there will be a link, click the link, you will get all the questions. Sir, but where do we watch all these questions, or where can we see all these questions? So, these questions can be seen in this particular book called P600 Plus. If you have the book, very good. If not, you want to buy it, buy it. If you don't want to buy it but want to access the PDF material, it is available free of cost on our website. The link for which also is given in the description below. So you understood that, right? The goal is solve these 150 questions. Your strike rate, right? If you look at my strike rate historically, what has it been? It has been above 55%, above 50% in terms of marks, above 50% in terms of questions that are asked. So if you are able to solve these 150 questions, I've put in more effort, try to condense the questions, try to make more estimates of what this institute could probably ask. Again, as I said, even though they are unpredictable, this is my attempt at trying to get a sense of how they are actually giving the questions, right? So I am giving this 150 questions. Let us see how it comes. My expectation is roughly about 70% of the questions should come from here, both from marks perspective as well as questions perspective. I expect 70% of the questions and marks to come from these 150 questions. Okay. In fact, if you look at the total questions that were asked in November 23 as May 24, almost every question was from P600, this book only. So if you are going to solve all 600 questions, obviously the strike rate will be as close to 100% as possible. But if you want to restrict it, if you want to see only a few questions, then probably 70% should be the strike rate. For how many questions? For 150 questions, which I have given here. Okay. So my dear friends, this is what I wanted to convey to you today. I hope all of you are preparing very, very well for the upcoming November 24 exam. There's just hardly about 50 odd days left. Please make best use of these 50 days, study very hard and excel in your exams and succeed in your careers. Okay. All the very best.